All right, everybody, and welcome to another movie comm. And today we're going to be watching and commentating over True Lies. Now, I am watching this on DVD, and I'm at the part where the 20th Century Fox logo is just appearing. So it's paused. So for those of you guys that are watching on DVD, that's where I'm at. Some of you guys might be watching from a streaming service, so just letting you know that that's where I'm at as well. So I am going to get ready to press play in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, press play. Now, this movie released in 1994, and it was absolutely positively full of action and also a lot of comedy, but not in a way that it would ruin the action. It had a very specific tone to it. It was still, I believe, an R-rated film, and basically it just was one of those movies that James Cameron had created that was different but still had his own touch on it. And of course, you've got the cast, which is absolutely incredible in this film. You had Bill Paxton, you had Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jamie Lee Curtis, Tom Arnold is in it. I mean, there's just so many great actors and people that played the role really well. And it was, again, when you've got a director like James Cameron as well, it's it's going to be shot well. Everything is going to play its role the way it's exactly supposed to play it, because James Cameron is very, very specific about his vision. Like everything, like every little nook and cranny, James Cameron is very specific about what it is that he wants and how he wants it. So he doesn't hold back. And the movie opens in Lake Chapeau. My reading sucks sometimes, but yeah, this is where we open. And it kind of reminds me to the first level of some video games, to where it's night and there's snow going on. You got all the limos and stuff like that. You got your guards outside with armed with machine guns or whatnot, and the house on the inside is huge and everything like that. So you got to kind of sneak your way in without being recognized. Oh, and I just realized Tia Carrere is also in the credits as well, because sometimes and man, Tia Carrere, man, such a hottie. Eliza Dushku is in this film as well. So when you put it all together, man, there's just so many good things in this film in terms of all the pieces that are put together. And we go right below the ice here in underwater in the snow, and we can see that Arnold's character, Harry Tasker, is basically getting through the metal underground, basically welding it. And that scuba suit that he's got on is very very cold resistant, despite the fact that Harry Tasker was probably somebody who underwent SEAL training, which they're used to the cold. But at the same time, that doesn't necessarily mean they have to suffer if they don't have to, but they can if they need to. And there he is, the man himself. I'm telling you, in the early mid-90s and everything like that, Arnold was on top of the world. He basically ruled the 90s. Kept on going back and forth with Sylvester Stallone to the point to where, Sylvester Stallone hated Arnold, but they obviously ended up becoming good friends. Again, two sides to the same coin. Both of them absolute legends. And Arnold, obviously, whenever he's on screen and whenever he does what he does, he doesn't always steal the scene, depending on who's on screen with and what the context of the scene requires. But at the same time, Arnold is Arnold. He was a larger than life type of figure, and he definitely did it in this film. So, and then of course you got Tom Arnold over here, and again, lots of comedy. Were you born in a barn? He's like, nope, a whorehouse. And you've got your fancy night goggle camera or whatnot. Well, fancy for back in 1994. I'm sure technology's gotten a lot more sophisticated since then. Got the earpiece going on, and he's got his tux on. He's getting ready to crash the party uninvited. And of course, you always got to have your explosives to get ready to go off. And a teeny weeny little bit of cologne. By the way, how much cologne do you guys use whenever you use cologne, right? How many sprays do you use, or do you have like the non-spray, you know? I'm actually curious. Some guys use more than others, no doubt about it. I'm sure it's a more specific question for a woman and how much perfume she uses, but he goes in through the kitchen and the head chef is like, what the hell is going on? But thankfully, Harry knows how to speak in, I think it's Arabic. So, pretending to be a figure that is of authority. Of course, grabbing the drink, people are kind of looking, well, some people are kind of looking in his direction like, who's that? But he makes it a point to fit in. Speaking in Arabic again, and the other guys are, and I wonder, the other guys are like, who's that? So, at this point, obviously the target is that dude right there, the billionaire. And then Tia Carrere just absolutely, like, you can't help but look at this woman. Tia Carrere, oh my gosh. This woman just, like, I thought she was the biggest hottie in this film, and I still do to this day, although I will say that I've always had a soft spot and a special place in my heart for Jamie Lee Curtis. Jamie Lee Curtis was always amazing. And even though she was a little bit past her prime in this film, she was, or who knows, maybe she still was in her prime. I'm not sure. Sure as hell didn't look like she was past her prime, but man, the ultimate, in my opinion, in so many ways, the ultimate woman. But at the same time, you look at Tia Carrere and you're like, well, that's the ultimate woman too. So it's like, I mean, you couldn't get me to choose between those two women. Like, seriously, you just couldn't. As Arnold kind of goes upstairs and sneaks into one of the rooms and decides to do a little bit of climbing, which I'm sure a stuntman is being used for this part of the scene right here, in which in a few scenes in this movie you can actually tell when it's a stuntman. So, and James Cameron getting the credit of screenplay, obviously, not just the direction. So it's what James Cameron usually does. And of course, you got your Doberman over here. Do you guys have any dogs? And if so, what kind of dogs do you have? As a matter of fact, when I was a child, my mom said that we actually had like 12 Doberman, believe it or not. And no BS, like we had 12 Doberman. So after all the Doberman were born. So, and they were very protective of me as well as their own puppies. So if there were strangers, they'd be very, very aggressive towards strangers. But if they know you, obviously they would have been the most friendliest pups. But yeah. And basically, Arnold's team is kind of going, one of them is kind of going through the hacking and the other one's kind of doing surveillance. And again, perfect Arabic. He's like, where's the John? I got to take a leak. And then this guard right here is curious as to like, what the hell? How did that guy go upstairs or whatever? Starts kind of alerting a few guards or whatnot. So Arnold pretending to look at the art, and then bam, there she is, the hottie of the party. It's like, how in the world do you not like? Wow. Obviously, there's an attraction right there. So, man, when you get a woman to look at you like that, it's like, how in the hell do you not like fall for her seduction? And then they look her up right away of who she is. And then they're like, ooh, wow, she's hot. So, and then through that, and then since he can hear his allies through the earpiece, it's like, you know, he gets additional intel that kind of makes him look a lot smarter than what he is. And I like how they always include that in this film, especially like that. It's like, this is how these guys do it. You know, I'm sure in real life situations, to where you've got agents that do this kind of work, I'm sure it's kind of similar. Obviously, with Hollywood, it's a little bit more exaggerated, and there's a few things that they get wrong in Hollywood or whatnot, right? That they obviously wouldn't do in real life. But I'm I'm sure there must be some truth to in terms of how they handle things and stuff like that. Obviously, Hollywood doesn't know everything because they're not supposed to when it comes to the secret stuff. But you know, it's a little bit of imagination with realism put in. And then of course you got the tango over here with Arnold and Tia Carrere. And let me tell you, I can't dance. I mean, I'm a martial artist, so if I learned to dance, I'm pretty sure I could. But my goodness, even if I couldn't dance and I wouldn't get on the dance floor, if I had a chance to dance with Tia Carrere despite my lack of dancing knowledge, I would fucking do it just because I could say I danced with Tia Carrere, despite the fact that I wouldn't know what the hell I was doing when it comes to tango. So I would just kind of try to go with the music and just kind of go with the flow and the rhythm. And she's like totally ready to get in his pants at this point. She's just, she plays her role very well in this film. So he finally hacked into everything and he's copying the finals and he's like, I've got my hand up her dress and I'm going for it. It's so hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. And yeah. Yep. I wonder if Arnold and Tia Carrere had to do any kind of dancing lessons in order to get this scene done. And I'm wondering, I can't help but wonder if Arnold actually hit that. Just, you know, if Arnold actually hit that, like, you know, behind the scenes, they actually got together and made it happen. I mean, if it can happen on a porn set, it can definitely happen in, you know, in acting in secret, obviously. And of course, she's got her card, her business card, or her number in in her bra. That's hilarious. And she's like, man, son of a bitch is with her for 2 minutes and she's ready to have Barry's children. Yep, he said it better. All right, Twinkle Toes, what's your exit strategy? I love that. I love the lines in this film. He's like, I'm gonna walk right off the front gate. Ballsy, stupid but ballsy. And then the guard, who's armed, is like, sir, may I see your invitation, please? And he's like, sure, here's my invitation. And then he gets the explosive to go off. And then all hell breaks loose at this point, and then you get your action. Arnold basically doing his thing. Question is, did this take place before or after Terminator 2 in terms of the film? No, this was after T2. Because T2 came out in 1992. Either 1992 or 1991. And this is 1994, so this was after T2. Ooh, and then you got the Doberman coming at him. And this is a cool little scene right here to where, boom, he just slaps them together. Boom. And then you could tell that, like, those were fake dogs when they went down like that. But it looked kind of real in terms of how they kind of collapsed and fell to the ground. But you could tell if you take a closer look. But a good effect nonetheless. So these guys right here are trying to get to the rendezvous point to pick him up, and he's got to run while escaping the bad guys. And of course, you've got interesting lighting here because the stuntman is doing a lot of work here too. It's Arnold, I'm sure, is doing a few things, but in terms of like the fancy sliding and all that kind of stuff, guess what? Like right there, you know, you could tell that's not Arnold. It's a stunt guy. You know, whenever he has to go down the hill like that really, really quick, it's like it's too risky for the actor. You know, if Arnold were to like sprain his ankle or stuff like that, production would have to would basically have to stop. You know, I'm sure Arnold can do a lot of the cool stuff, but at the same time, there's a lot of stuff that he can't do, and there's certain things that he shouldn't do. So, but it's just really noticeable of the stunt guy. And they made it to where whenever you had close-ups to where you would actually see Arnold, like right here, like the close-ups, and then anything further away, like right here, it wouldn't be Arnold. So, but it was still cool nonetheless. But the typical bad guy scenario to where the bad guys are basically shooting like stormtroopers, even though they're more armed, they're basically shooting like stormtroopers and they miss every single shot. So in other words, Arnold's lucky. But it's Arnold, so it can't be luck, right? No, this is so funny. Can you lean back a second? Boom. Takes a few shots. Takes those guys out. And it also just goes to show you how important marksmanship is, you know, because those guys were armed with submachine guns and Arnold just had a pistol or a sidearm and was able to take all of them out despite the fact that he was less armed, less heavily armed than the other guys. So marksmanship, ladies and gentlemen, very important. So getting his IDs back and all that kind of other good stuff, getting dropped back home. So many things you got to remember and a lot of things to keep track of. And of course, the toy for your daughter from when you're out of town. He's like, hey, nice touch. But there's one thing that he's forgetting, of course, and that is the most important thing, well, sentimentally at least, is the ring. His wedding ring. Did you forget something? He's like, what? He's like, the ring. He's like, what a team. And basically, he just goes back home and he seems like a regular dad. And the thing is, his family has absolutely no idea what he does. No idea what he does. They think he works in computers and he's hardly home because he's busy all the time. Well, he is hardly home because he's busy all the time, but not because he works on computers. And it's because he's actually saving the world. He's got his own hand in saving the world and he puts his ass on the line all the time. And of course, you go home and your wife is already asleep and she's out of it. So, how was your flight? It was fine. And basically, at this point, we go into the next morning. And there we are with Eliza Dushku. Kind of plays a tomboy in this film. And Jamie Lee Curtis plays the secretary wife. And he's talking about how, and he's got to make up a story about how he was the big hit of the show in terms of what he's been doing with in the computer business and everything. So he's actually got to be an actor within an actor. I'm sure this stuff happens to a certain degree, at least to, you know, with real life agents that have to do this. Even when you look at Navy SEALs, you know, they, even if they knew where they were going on their mission or whatnot before they're briefed, it's like they can't even talk about it. So and then here you got a cool scene. His glasses, Tom Arnold's glasses over here remind me of Terminator's glasses, but I always thought that was really cool. He got a fake pack of cigarettes. That is actually a camera, which is pretty cool. I mean, back in the day, things like little gadgets like that were really cool back in the day. You know, right now, obviously, all of us have a camera everywhere we go and a computer pretty much in the palm of our hand everywhere we go. But, you know, things like that really didn't exist back in the day. Back in the day, it was like if you were lucky in 1994, you'd have a cell phone, but it wasn't very common. And then at least not as common, anywhere near as common as it is today, but it was mostly beepers and stuff like that. So yeah, so basically as a little TV in the glass right there. Pretty cool. Kind of like, and he spots his daughter stealing. He's like, what the hell? And then she gets out of there in time. She's like, oh, she's ripping you off. And he's like, I knew it. She's like, I can't stop. I'm late. And it just goes to show you, man, he really does play the dad that's hardly ever at home, that works in computers, family man sort of deal. Because at the same time, you know, when he's not saving the world, that's kind of what he is. And that's kind of what he has to play as well. Because it's like, You know, his family can't know. Simple as that. If they did, I'm sure his daughter would have respected him a hell of a lot more, and nonetheless wouldn't have done some of the things she's doing out of pure respect and admiration for her father. But um, whether or this movie kind of also to a certain degree also shows, like when you think a little bit more in depth about it, like if kids truly like respect their parents more, they're going to do like less bad shit. I mean, they're always going to do some stuff here and there because they're kids, right? Because they're young, and you know, kids do that, you know. Uh but like if the daughter were to know that her dad was a badass and stuff like that, she's like, nah, I'm not going to do that, you know. Especially since, you know, both those guys, they work together, so it's like, you know, you get the point. So, and over here they're being checked with x-rays and they can tell that they're armed, and then the woman in the check-in, of course, is armed herself. Fingerprint and retina scan. And you can see the headquarters of who they work for. So they work for the Omega sector, which is the last line of defense. So and then you've got the offices over here with the nice black leather chairs and the glass tables and all that kind of good stuff. So even for 1994, this looks great. If they were to do a sequel to True Lies all these years later, you know, I mean, granted, Harry is retirement age now, but let's say Harry were to be this guy, you know, um, who reminds you of a pirate captain, obviously, who's obviously, you know, the head of this whole organization. Well, not the whole organization, but he's one of the higher ups, and Arnold has to answer to him basically. But he's given plenty. He gets plenty of slack to Arnold because of everything Arnold's done. So he gets slack. So if Arnold kind of bends the rules or even breaks the rules, he gets slack because of everything he's been able to accomplish. But later on, I mean, it would be like I would see Arnold taking on this role, and then somebody else playing the role of Arnold. So if they were to do another True Lies sequel, and Arnold were to be like the head of this table here, and is overseeing everything, who would you want to take Arnold's place in this film? Like, which action star today do you think would make a good, you know, Harry Tasker like, you know, like character? So, little penis reference there. We don't have anything rock hard. He's like kind of limp, and he's like, you know, Tom Arnold's like kind of limp, and it's so funny. What a metaphor. His wife is like, it's not like he's saving the world or anything. He's a sales rep, for goodness sake. And it's like, yeah, that's actually very funny. And when you look at everything that Arnold does in this film, it's like it makes you wonder what kind of training these guys go through, right? To get to where they are now, right? And we're not just talking basic underwater demolition SEAL training, you know. I mean, even SEALs don't just do SEAL training. There's more to it than that that main people don't, that the public doesn't know about, you know, that we don't know. I mean, we've seen and read things, but it's like you don't know everything, and nor are they allowed to talk about it. So, you know, there's a certain admiration and level of respect you have for individuals that do this, that do the ultimate job, and that literally put themselves on the line. So it's you know, it kind of makes you wonder like how much training and how many years of absolute dedication people go through in order to achieve this. And ultimately also the level of confidence that you have once you have received this training and you've gone through it and you're actually out there on the field, you know, similar to Tom Cruise's character in Mission Impossible. You know, the amount of training that Ethan Hunt has had to go through in order to be able to have the skills and knowledge that he's done must be absolutely astounding. And that's one of the things that makes the Mission Impossible movies so awesome. And they've only been getting better with time. And Tom Cruise has been getting better as well. And then here we go. They meet up again so soon. Juno Skinner. And he's like, what's the point of waiting? She's like, I agree. So Juno Skinner herself, aka Tia Carrere, who's been in multiple roles. And again, she's always She just always, like, you can't help but like look at this woman, and it's like every single time she's on screen, it's like, Jack, you're gonna mention something of how attractive she is. It's like, yeah, how the hell can you not? but but yeah, you get to see pretty soon in terms of who she really is, which again makes things very interesting, because sometimes you're like, uh sometimes you could be like, this, you know too good to be true, or something along those lines. But at the same time, it's always interesting when you get the hot chick that is, let's say, feisty, so to speak, right? So you gotta have that. You get your good chick and you get your bad chick, and obviously you're seeing here that all of these people that are working or supposedly working in the background may be a little bit more than what they seem, and you get to see this. And very interesting question here, Mr. Rehnquist. Do you see anything you like? So I'm sure Harry's job has even possibly required him to, even sleep with women, even though he didn't want to. And despite the fact that he's married, like his heart might not want to, but who knows? He is a man after all, so I'm sure he wouldn't mind pounding the hell out of that. But at the same time, he is Harry, so his character is a morally correct one, so he wouldn't do it. But if he had to, for the sake of the job, he would. And bam, right there, he slaps her right there. Aziz just slaps her, and basically it's known that he's basically in charge of this whole thing. So, and he could tell that Harry was an agent or something. So, and he slaps her again after she talks back to him once more time, and he's like, I'm not going to tolerate mistakes, and then she's like, what do you want me to do? So at this point, she needs to find out where he is and all that. So thanks to Aziz, who's the head of the terrorists in this film, basically decides to, basically gets her aware that, hey, this guy is, even though he checked out okay, he's not okay. There's something going on. And it's Harry's birthday at this point, and his family's calling and wants to make sure that he's home by 8. So, and even the people that answer the phone, it's like, Harry's in a sales rep meeting, Miss Tasker, hold on. So it's all a front. The building itself is a front, and then underneath all that, you got more. So at this point, on their way home after a long day of work, and they're being followed. And Harry's like, we got to get this lead. He's calling other units, and it's going to be very interesting at this point, because his family's going to be mad that he's going to be home. But yeah, that's the problem with the bad guys. They're really inconsiderate about people's schedules. And yeah, another action scene that will take place at night. You gotta love it. Of course, you got the earpiece, and of course the Terminator glasses, or that remind you of the Terminator. He's got the camera right there in his hand, so you can see right behind him every time. Pretty good acting on Arnold's part with the cigarette. And because in real life, as we know, he smokes, even though he's a cigar smoker. He's not a cigarette smoker. He's a cigar smoker. But good acting, nonetheless. What's the plan? Just trying to get a closer look at Beavis and Butthead. Really hilarious. A lot of the lines in this movie are absolutely hilarious, and they were written that way because this movie, despite all the action and everything, was not really meant to be taken too seriously. It was like a 60-40 thing, to where it's like 60% seriously and 40% comedy, or vice versa, the way, depending on how you look at it. You know, when you're a kid, you look at it, when you're a kid, you look at this movie, like when I first saw this movie, I was like 10 years old or something like that. And you take it, you kind of take it seriously because it's an R-rated action film with all this other stuff going on, right? But then when you see it as an adult, or once you reach a certain level of maturity, you're like, this movie's hilarious. All, you know, all the lines and all the metaphors and all that kind of stuff. It's like, man, it's just pure fun. Absolute pure fun. And they followed him into the bathroom, and they're armed to the teeth. And one of those guys is absolutely huge. Wouldn't be surprised if he was actually a bodybuilder that Arnold wanted to get in the film for whatever reason. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? But he had to be. But he had to be there because Arnold's a big guy, and this guy was also a big guy, bigger than Arnold, obviously, because this guy was in his prime. And as soon as the bus moves right behind him, Gib loses the third guy, the main boss, who is also on his way to where those guys are now. Armed with a silenced gun. And Arnold can see it all because of the bam. Classic arm lock. Get him to the wall, and then bam, a few shots. What kind of gun is that? Is that an MP7? I swear, ever since Call of Duty, whenever I watch action films and I see whatever submachine gun or assault rifle is being used, it's like I'm a little bit more familiar with what guns those are. It's like, wow, I saw this gun in Call of Duty. It's like, holy shit. You know, I may not know exactly the mark of certain guns. I'm like, yeah, that's an MP7, that's a newbie, that's a Uzi, that's a Vector, that's an AK, you know, things like that. It's like, holy crap. So, it's amazing how you can be a little bit more familiar with firearms when playing Call of Duty for a certain period of time. So, I'm sure the crew had a lot of fun trashing this bathroom. And then bam, poor guy in the bathroom over here while all this action is going on. As the guy goes all the way to the urinal, and bam, here, cool off, flushing it. And then the main bad guy, Aziz, is armed with an assault rifle. Actually, no, that's a submachine gun, I think. And he's firing it from the hip. Go figure. Submachine gun, and it looks like an AK-7 for you. Thanks, Call of Duty. Damn. I bet the actor playing Aziz really had some fun shooting this gun. Not gonna lie. And then kicking open the doors, and of course, and you could tell on the other side of that, it's like, yep, those were taped. And Arnold jumps off from the end and is able to get the gun. You got some back and forth shooting action. And despite the fact that he's more heavily armed, Aziz runs away and while he fires blindly. Arnold apologizes to the poor old man in the bathroom that was simply just trying to take a dump, and then the next thing you know, it's like you see all these major things. And here comes Gib, who was a little late to the party, but in a very interesting scene right here, almost gets to Aziz, but and he hides right behind a pole, and Aziz completely misses and hits nothing but the pole, and he's like standing right behind it, even though he could have been shot. Very funny. He searches himself, no holes, and then he kisses the pole. One of the more funny scenes, I swear. He's searching his whole body, including his groin, for holes, and he's like, oh, thank God. Kisses, kisses the pole. This movie really is hilarious and full of action. It's James Cameron's version of an action comedy done right. Ooh, and then a biker on a motorcycle just happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time and gets pulled down by Aziz. And Aziz is escaping, and Arnold is on foot, or should I say Arnold's stuntman? Arnold's stuntman. And here we go. And there's a cop on a horse, and he takes down the horse. And he starts chasing the motorcycle with the horse. Better than being on foot. I know Arnold did some of this, but not all of it, obviously. And I like how he says, make it quick because my horse is getting tired. It's like, your horse? So pretty much a demonstration that horsepower actually does matter, because horsepower is awesome. And it just shows. It's like, yeah, it's like Arnold's got, well, 1 horsepower, I'm assuming, versus a motorcycle. And then they got him trapped. And then you briefly saw that it was a stuntman. It looked a lot like Robert Patrick that was on the horse instead of Arnold. So you get little brief glimpses. And if you have it on DVD or whatnot, you can pause it and you can see it. But yeah, they're in a hotel right now, and it's a horse chasing motorcycle. You gotta love it. And of course, the advantage, the horse has advantages in certain ways, as it can jump over stuff, and then the motorcycle's like, a little different. And then Arnold being super polite, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. And then funny scene right here, motorcycle goes through while these guys are playing their musical instruments, and then the saxophone guy just blows it too hard when he sees the horse. Hilarious. 90s humor, basic 90s humor. And me being a 90s kid, I enjoyed it. I enjoy that little thing. Sometimes James Cameron just does the little subtle things. Sometimes they're funnier than others, but sometimes he does the little subtle, the most subtle of things to ease the tension, sometimes in the middle of an action scene. But at the same time, it depends on what the movie itself, like what the theme of the movie is, because the theme of this movie is definitely not as serious as a Terminator film. Although the second film had a little bit more comedy than the first one. Actually, the first film, it hardly had any comedy at all. Tensions were always high. So, but in the second one, there was room to do so, because Arnold's Terminator was a good guy, and he was learning, and John Connor, being the kid, was teaching him a few human attributes, especially after the chip was removed from his head and then replaced back in after removing a switch of some kind. And yeah. Yes, the horse in an elevator scene. Can you press the button for the top floor, please? Thank you. Now the question that I have is, well, what if he wasn't on the top floor? What if he didn't make it all the way to the top floor? Guy in the elevator trying to be really friendly. He's like, "That's a fine animal." And it is. Horses are very beautiful animals. And then Arnold's giving the guy a look from far away, and then bad guy's terrified, and then Arnold's just like giving him the look. So yep. It's gonna be incredibly brave for him to go all the way through and then make that jump. I wonder, like the stuntman that did this stunt over here, where he just goes off the top of the roof of the building through motorcycle and lands on top of another building in a pool. Must have been a hell of a stunt. And then Arnold's like, yeah, I've got this. I can do it with the horse. And he goes to do it too. But the horse is like, fuck no, I'm not doing this. And it's all in slow motion and everything too. And it's like, seems like he's going to go for it. And then Arnold is even smiling about it. He's like, yeah, let's go. And then the horse just stops. There's no way. But thankfully, Arnold had his hand tied around the rope over there, holding on to the horse to where, you know, he didn't let go, which was good. So, and now at this point, Arnold completely communicates with the horse, and he's like, okay, back up. He's like, back up. And then the horse is smiling. And he's like, come on, you can do it. Back up. And then the horse slowly starts to back up. He's like, yeah, good, back now. And then the horse just slowly backs up. And then Arnold and the horse in a second will have a moment before it cuts to back home. And Aziz ends up getting away at this point. And now Arnold's yelling at the horse. He's like, I had that guy and you let him get away. Well, he's not yelling at him, but he's mad at him. He's like, look at me when I talk to you. He's like, what kind of a cop are you anyway? And the horse actually looked at him and everything. So, and of course, you know, in every movie that Arnold's in, if he's talking to an animal, the animal's going to, you know, understand him completely because he's Arnold. But, you know, funny little scene. But at the same time, if you're a person that, you know, cares for animals and has an empathy for animals, you know, and loves animals, it's like, man, don't yell at the horse. Like, I understand the comedy of that aspect, but it's like, of that scene, but still, it's like, me personally, I would have been like, well, we didn't get him, but you did save my life, even though you almost you saved my life twice. Once for you not jumping, even though I wanted to, and then the other one you grabbed me back from when I was hanging. So, and now in this scene, Arnold's at headquarters and he discovers who this guy is. So, and it was all in the eyes too. Got a good look at his eyes from the previous scene, and he's like, yep, that's him. So, and then they realize this guy's a major player, and yeah, at this point, Arnold, despite his job, is also thinking about how, you know, came home late last night and everybody was already asleep and he missed his own birthday after they prepped for him and everything. But at the same time, you know, the wife just doesn't know what he does, at least not yet. And when she finds out, that's when things really get interesting. Actually, things get really interesting right before she finds out, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So the thing is, the good news is that they know who this guy is, but they don't know where he is. So, and again, things get really, really interesting at this point. Again, the movie is called True Lies after all, so it's not just there's a little bit more to it than the action and the comedy and all that kind of stuff, because there's some things that actually happen in this film that happen in real life, and it's not just limited to people that are in the same line of work as Arnold's character, but it's just in relationships, period. And this is where we start to see that Arnold's about to walk in, surprise his wife, and then he backs off because he's like, it's like, you're getting a call, it's your mystery man. And he's like, who, Simon? And Arnold's like, Simon. And she's like totally into Simon for who he is, or supposedly who he is. And Arnold at this point, she has no idea he's there, so he's just kind of listening in, eavesdropping. And then at this point, Arnold is, you know, kind of heartbroken because he believes that Helen is having an affair. And she kind of is, even though nothing's happened yet, she kind of is having an affair. And the poor guy's just heartbroken, doesn't care if he gets run over by a damn bus. I mean, look at this. And He's like, it looked like you got gut kicked. And it's like, well, quite worse than that. So he's like, it's Helen. He's like, yeah, he's got something to do with Helen, I'm guessing. It's like, no shit. He just said her name 3 times. Helen is having an affair. And then and then he just hugs him. He's like, welcome to the club, man. Nobody thinks this could happen to them the first time, but same thing happened to me with wife number 2. I had no idea there's nothing going on, right? I come home one day and the house is completely empty. And she even took the ice cube trays out of the freezer. What kind of a sick bitch takes the ice cube trays out of the freezer? That's hilarious. Wife number 2. I wonder how many times he got married. Like his character. And finally Arnold's had, he's like, stop cheering me up. And then you finally tell her, he's like, what'd you expect, Harry? Helen's a flesh blood woman. You're never there. It was just a matter of time. So that like, you know, it's like, now it's a matter of time between 2 things. Either she's going to cheat on you while still being with you, or she's going to say, hey, it's over, we're going to get a divorce. And then she's going to go and do whatever she wants. But we don't live in a perfect world, so it's like every woman's going to do different things and make a different decision based off of the situation. And the thing is, and it's for different reasons. Sometimes women cheat because, or a partner, let's just say, might cheat because the other person is not there and is not giving them the kind of attention that they need as human beings and as a couple. And sometimes it's because they can't physically mate for whatever reason. Like, let's say a man has erectile dysfunction or something like that, or let's say the woman is just not, or from the other side of the table, maybe the woman is just boring in bed or something like that, or she's not very highly sexual or something like that, or doesn't, you know, things like that. Or things used to be spicy and they're just not anymore, and people just get bored. And some people will actually open up to like things like open relationships and stuff like that. But again, to each their own, and I'm not the one to judge, but there are a multitude of reasons as to why things like this happen. And over here at the dinner table, she's just lying through her teeth and you can see right through her as the camera pans closer to Arnold's face and you get a close-up of him, and he literally looks like the Terminator for a split second there. It's like that, yeah, that's the look, all right. And he can see right through the bullshit. So, but he's playing along with it, and it's this is when things get really interesting, because the movie kind of takes a break from the direction it was heading in order to kind of take an in-depth look at what's going on at home, which is very interesting. And he continues to be like, you know, heartbroken days in and day out, and he's being lied to his face, and he's not liking it. So, and he's losing his patience, and then he starts to think, I've got all these resources because I work for this company, I work for all this, and he's like, maybe I could use this. Let's put a tap on her phone. So, you know, it's like you can't be using those for your personal stuff. The sector resources you can't use, but non-authorized wiretap is a felony, and we're doing it 20 times a day, so don't give me that crap. Do it. So it's getting to the point now to where he starts to learn more about everything, and he actually sets up like a handful of things in order to see things. So look at that complete transcript of their entire conversation. And it's Bill Paxton. This is where we're introduced to Bill Paxton's character. And he seems to be something, and then we quickly learn that he's actually something else. So, pretty damn interesting. And what Bill Paxton is in this film is a 1994 version of what you see in, like, let's say, some dating apps, for instance, where a profile is fake, so to speak, right? So, or people that say that they are something when they're not. On a lot of these dating apps, either a man or a woman will say that there's something that they're not. Like, for instance, I'll speak for what women have told me, and like there's a lot of guys out there that pretend that they're single when they're actually not, for instance, right? And or they're this but they're not that, or they'll look a certain way in their profile picture, and then you go to meet them in real life. I mean, granted, you do meet, and they look nothing like their profile picture, as if it was taken 10 years ago, or if it didn't even look remotely like them. And at the same time, from both sides, women do this too, like to where she'll take a picture of herself years ago where she was like 50, 60 pounds lighter than where she is now. Or she'll take a current picture of herself, which is true, but she'll hide the fact that like it'll be taken from an angle to where you can't tell if she's a bigger woman or not, or it'll be taken from an angle to where she looks smaller. So, and it's absolutely true. All this stuff really does happen in today's day and age. Kid you not. Seen it with my own two eyes, and heard stories about what some of the women that I've dated over the last couple of years have told me. So, and it doesn't matter whether it's a serious dating site or if it's just like a casual dating site or app or whatever you want to call it. Doesn't matter. It's a lot of the same stuff. You know, just because it's Match or eHarmony doesn't mean that the same stuff doesn't happen, because it does. It just happens less frequently because people are paying a higher price, or paying for, you know, something that's a little bit higher quality or whatnot. So it filters out, you know, the bad apples. It filters out some of the bad apples, but you're always going to have bad apples no matter what. It's kind of like cheating with video games. It's a free to play game. Higher percentage of people are going to cheat. If you have to pay full price for a game, just the fact that it has a price tag on it is going to filter out a few of the cheaters. So, and Bill Paxton over here just plays like 2 or 3 different characters in this film. Well, 2 different characters. He's pretending to be somewhat of a spy, like what Arnold is, right? And he's just pretending. It's not who he really is. And in real life, he's just a guy that can't score. He just can't score. So he has to pretend to be something that he's not. And doesn't this sound familiar in today's day and age, or what? Except back then, you actually had to meet and all that kind of stuff because of the lack of technology. But nowadays, it's like people can be completely like, because of technology and because of social media and the power of the internet, computer, phones, Photoshop, and all that other shit. I mean, people are just more fake than ever. So it's like you got to know what to look for. So even back then, you kind of had to know what to look for. But yeah. But this is very interesting, though, how this guy is pretending. And she has no idea that her husband is actually the real guy that did all the stuff that they're talking about in this scene. But yeah. And then you get to see that this guy's a used car salesman. And of course, he's going to take one of the better cars that's worth about just under $18,000. And then they're tailing him, and Gibbs is like just laughing at this. He's like, this is getting better and better. He's like, oh, sorry, Harry, I know it's got to be painful, but I mean, if the roles were reversed, you'd be laughing your ass off at this point. So, and then here comes Arnold pretending to also be just a regular old Joe that might be interested in the car. And he takes this guy for a ride. Takes him for a ride. And he's telling him about the car, and he's like, it doesn't handle that great, but you know why we're getting this car? Pussy, right? Trying to score women and stuff like that. And he's like, face it, Harry, the vet gets him wet. I swear Bill Paxton just nails this part, man, I'm telling you. But it's not enough. If you really want to close escrow, you gotta have an angle. I suppose you have an angle. Oh, it's killer. He's like, look at me. I'm not much to look at. I can be honest. But I got him lining up. And it's not just skanks. Well, some are. So he's asking him, he's like, what's your angle? And he's, no, it's a trade secret. But then eventually he tells him, he's like, and he starts just telling him everything. So he's like, just ask yourself, what do women really want? These bored housewives married to the same guy for years, they need some release, and I provide that for them. Some adventure, a hint of danger. So Arnold actually kind of learns from this because that's what he kind of gives his wife later on. But the real thing, nothing fake, as opposed to what this guy's doing. It's like, well, what about their husbands? Dickless. He said that right when he was taking a bite out of the hot dog. He's like, dickless. They were in business, I'd be out of business, you know? He's like, there's one right now. I've got her panned like a dog. It's great. And he's obviously talking about her husband. I'm sorry, his wife. So she could be so hot if she wanted to, but with you, she gets to be real hot, huh? And then he just starts bragging and shit. And he's like, oh man, it's like a dying plant, just needs a little water. Married some boring jerk. And then he's like, wow, married some boring jerk. She can suck start a leaf blower. And it's like, oh man, Arnold's just having enough of this. He's not fond of this at all. So the look that he just gives him is just hilarious. And then bam, he punches him right in the face. But we cut and we see that Arnold was just thinking of that and that it didn't happen. I'm sure at the movie theater people were like, oh, that was awesome. So Arnold, because of his training, because of who he really is able to drive that car in an amazing way. And he's like, see, you and this car were made for each other. Funny. He's like, you want to start up the paperwork, huh? He's like, hold on to it for a few days for me. He's like, hey, because it's you. And of course, Arnold wants an update on the tabs on Helen's phone. And Gibb is holding a page back because he knows if he sees it, he's pretending to not know. And then Arnold just gets pissed and he's like, give me the damn page. And he just punches the window of the car. And he just looks at him and he's like, okay. And just gives it to him. And he's like, seek help, Harry. And at this point, they're supposed to meet tonight at 8 o'clock sharp. And it's almost 8 o'clock. So Arnold goes on the chase and basically uses sector resources in order to make some stuff happen, which makes things very interesting over the next 10 minutes of this film. Like, very interesting. And then Harry's not listening to anything that Gibb is telling him. And he's like, hey, if you're telling me, I'm telling you. So, because apparently Gibb did something once. He's like, I'm as clean as a preacher's sheets. Okay. He's like, what about that one time where you blew a 6-week operation because you were too busy getting your dick sucked? And he's like, you knew about that? And he's like, huh? And then he's like, okay, let's take Franklin. It's a lot quicker. Just absolutely incredible. Just the little things in this film that make you laugh. And they meet under a bridge. And then he shows up in that one in the car that Arnold was driving earlier, or they was driving with Arnold. Go figure. And if this guy's pretending to be a spy, he's doing a terrible job, because if you really were a spy, that's not what you would be driving. You need to drive something something inconspicuous. It's like, if I'm spy, it'd be best if they didn't see you. So it's like, you're in a fucking convertible, dude. How can they not see you? It's like, you know, you need to be driving a regular ass car if you're really going to be a spy. You need to blend in. And he's being spied on by real spies, and that's the interesting thing about this. And then right now, it's like, he's even got the chopper. He's like, Condor, give me a visual. It's like, look at that. It's like, yep, she's got her head in the guy's lap, all right, Yahoo. So it's like, you know, from that angle, it looks like, you know what it looks like. And then Gibbs is like, maybe she's sleepy. And he's just looking at it like seriously, dude. And they go to a trailer, which is probably where he actually lives. And then he actually tells her, he's like, Helen, I want you to be my wife. He's like, no, just for the operation. I need to be married. They'll be looking for a man traveling alone. And she's like, Paris? You want me to go to Paris? Quick stop over in London. And he's just laughing about it while this is hilarious. And he's already got 2 tickets. And she saw them. So she's got to be like, hey, wow, this has got to be real. And at this point, the whole crew is getting set up. Arnold's got his guys on and everything, and they're getting set up. It's going to be hilarious. And after a few more sips of that champagne or wine or whatever it was, yeah, it was wine, she just decides to do it. She's like, yep, I'll do it. And he looks at her and he's like, you just saved my life. And I'm just like, I swear, Bill Paxton is just nailing this right out of the park by being like a phony. And he's doing it so well. I'm telling you. Just goes to show you how great of an actor he is, really. And it's cool to see that James Cameron has him in this film as well. They've done a couple films together. What film has he done with him? Let's see. There was Aliens, where he played Hudson. And now there's this film, and I think there's like one more. I can't think of it off the top of my head. I think there's one more. Well, obviously he was also in Terminator. You know, he played one of the thugs in the first Terminator film. But yeah, you can't go wrong with Bill Paxton in any role, because he knows the guy's a damn good actor. And over here, he starts on the move. You know, he wants to get some at this point. And Arnold and crew start making it closer to the trailer, to where they're gonna, quote unquote, infiltrate. And Helen just is like, I cannot do this. And she's like, and he's like, if you can't do it for me, do it for your country. And I'm like, wow. See, this is as low as it gets, like this guy. And yeah. Oh, and then the lights all of a sudden go out. And the real spies infiltrate, indeed. Wow, and he falls right in between her legs as Arnold walks in, and they're in like that position. So he's like, what the hell? Does not like what he sees. Obviously gets him out of there. And this is a very interesting part coming up, so check this out. cuffs Simon, puts him on top of the car, and he cuffs him, right? Okay. So one of Arnold's guys gets kicked in, gets kneed in the nuts, of course, and then Arnold runs after her to, you know, stop her, puts his arms around, and she actually bites him, and he lets go. And then another guy hits her in the back of the head with a gun, and bam, Arnold just punches him, knocks him down. Because he hit her with the butt of his car, the butt of the butt of his gun, when it wasn't necessary. But he probably didn't know that it was his real wife. But regardless, despite the fact that he didn't know it, you know, as the husband and as a man, you're just going to react that way. If somebody hit your wife that you love in the back of the head with the butt of your machine gun, you would probably react the same way and simply just punch the guy in the face. And it wasn't a personal punch either. It's just like, it was just one of those punches and that's it. And then he just grabbed his wife and then that was it. And she's in this interrogation type of room where it's just her. And all she sees is the mirror, but obviously on the other side of the mirror, you've got Harry and Gibbs doing their whole recording and everything. And this is where things really get interesting. And then they're making up the fact that that Simon was a terrorist, when he wasn't, but they're just trying to figure out the entire story of how everything happened and such and such. So I found that quite interesting. So here we go. How did you meet him? So apparently it was just at a regular Chinese restaurant when she was on one of her breaks. Walked by, thought she was hot, and started to play his game and pretending like he's somebody who he's not. So she actually took the briefcase and opened it and then closed it back up again. Well, she picked it to open it. Saw a few things. Obviously, he knew that she was going to open it, so he had to put in a whole bunch of fake stuff in there. Or things that made him look like he was different than what he was, including a gun, which is probably a fake gun. But obviously it scared her, so she just kind of closed it. And then we found out that she wasn't very attracted to him in the first place. Like, maybe just a little, according to her. So Gib actually asked some really good questions. So is cheating a common thing for you? He's like, no, never. So you're telling me this was your first time? And then Arnold's like, wait a minute. It's like, I wasn't cheating. It's like, well, you kind of were, lady. Tell me about your husband, Mrs. Tasker. Harry? And then Harry just wants to hear everything. And he's like, what can I say about him? He's a sales rep for a computer company. So sex with him wasn't waving your flag anymore? And then he's like, that's not your business. What kind of questions are these? You're in trouble. I suggest you cooperate. If we want to know the most intimate details about our life, you better tell us. So, and then she's like, my husband's a good man. And he likes that. But but Gib is just like digging. He's like, he's not waving your flag anymore. He's like, let me handle this. Do you mind? It's like, why'd you go to this guy's hideout? He wanted me to go to Paris on a mission to pose as his wife. And then he's like, you agreed? And he's like, why? And then this is where things get interesting. She's she needed something, and she needed that sense of feeling special and to be wanted and needed and stuff like that. And she wasn't getting that. She wanted to feel alive and to do something outrageous. So, and who knows, maybe that's why some, I can't speak for, like, I can only speculate obviously, but I think this is also why some women cheat. They're not getting, or they get divorced and then they just end up cutting loose or whatever. Like, cuz they're just bored of the whole housewife thing and they need some spice in their lives or whatever it is. So, and then Harry's paying attention to every word she's saying, and at the same time, like, Gib is just kind of rolling her eyes. So, she just wants to live again. She kind of just wants to, you know, do things. So Arnold asks now, is like, this Simon, did you sleep with him? And she says no. And Gibbs like, she's lying. So Arnold asks again, he's like, you didn't have any sexual relations with him? And he's like, why are you gonna ask me every single question twice? She's like, I gotta get back home. And he's like, you're not going anywhere. And he's like, just answer the question. And then we see a different side to Helen that apparently Harry hasn't seen before, to where she just loses her shit. Where she repeatedly says, I did not sleep with him. And then Gibbs like, well, she could be telling the truth. And then he realizes that, wow, she's really like had enough. And then he asks the important question. He's like, do you still love your husband? And he's in a position to where he like actually gets to find out the truth to that answer, because she doesn't know that it's actually him asking. So, and then she gives the right answer, and thankfully it's the truth. And she loves her husband. So he's like, okay. And Gibbs like, yay, she loves you. So what now? What now? So this is where it gets interesting. He's like, there's only one solution to your problem, Miss Tasker. You're going to work for us. I'm going to send you on a mission. And he's like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm just giving her a little assignment. Like, she wants a little adventure, I'm going to give her one. He's like, I'm offering you a choice. If you work for us, we will drop the charges and you can go back to your normal life. If not, you'll go to a federal prison. And your husband and your daughter will be left humiliated and alone. And your life will be destroyed. He's like, and then Helen's like, gee, let me think. Yes or no? And she's like, of course, yes. It's like, what's involved? You'll be contacted with the assignment. Your code name will, your code of your contact will be Boris, and your code name will be, and she's like, Natasha? And he's like, no, Doris. This is where things get interesting. And they let her go. And Simon, of course, very interesting here. So, on the edge. And he's like, do you think you could elude us forever, Carlos? And like, hey, you got the wrong guy. My name's Simon. I've never seen your face. And then and then it's Harry. He's like, no, I haven't seen it. So hilarious. I swear, the crew must have been laughing with Bill's acting on this. He's like, hey, you still interested in that vet? And they're both going at this so good. They're just completely like going at it to this guy. He's like, I'm actually a complete coward. I've never seen a gun. Oh man. Like, Bill Paxton's acting is perfect in this scene. He's like, I'm not a terrorist. I'm not a spy. He's like, I have to lie to women to get laid and I don't score much. And he's like, I got a little dick. It's pathetic. And Arnold just looks at him and then he just lets him go. He starts feeling sorry for him and he pisses his pants. It's like, it's like, yeah, we've. He starts laughing. He's like, get the fuck out of here, huh? Just go. He's like, you're gonna shoot me as I turn around, right? And he's like, you're gonna shoot me. He's like, I'm just trying to get out of there. And he's like, and Gibbs like, get lost, dipshit, and starts shooting the ground right in front of his feet. And he's just left out there in his pajamas and a tank top. And it's like, looking around, how do I get out of here? Blah, blah, blah. Hilarious. And then Arnold just looks at Helen in the dinner table. She's like, last night must have been exciting for you. And she's just like shaking. And he knows what's going on, obviously, because he was in charge of it all. So this is where he gets to have fun with it. And there's the phone ringing, and he knows who it is because he set it all up. Distorted voice, Doris. Yes. uh, in 1 hour, go to the hotel and dress sexy. She's like, what? and and they've even got a French guy doing a recording of a French accent and everything. He's like really setting everything up. But at the end of the day, what he wants to do, what Harry wants to do, is actually um like he wants to like spice up his own relationship, and in doing so, what he's also doing is he also tells her that he, like he would also be telling her like that he is a spy, you know, because he hasn't told her everything yet, and she will find out because something else ends up happening. But what he wanted to do was kind of just spice up his love life with his wife and just set it up that way. And then once she realizes that it's him, he, you know, it's like, Harry? It's like, what is going on? And it's like, and then he explains everything and such and such. So I think Harry, in a really interesting way, was going to basically spice up his life and then reveal to Helen that he's who he really is and what he really does. So, so basically, they're giving her a fake mission and plant a bug right under the guy's phone. And you know, if you do not complete your mission, the deal's off. And then she's got this dress that she's wearing, and then she just stops and looks at herself in the mirror, and then she's not satisfied. So this is where classic Jamie Lee Curtis starts coming out. So she removes aspects of the dress that she doesn't like to make it look even better and more exotic, so to speak, right? So yeah, yep, showing more leg, you can't go wrong, especially with legs like hers. And gets the lipstick out, and then she waters her hair to like complete the look. Yep, that's what we call classic Jamie Lee Curtis. Yep, ready to rock and roll. And of course, because this movie's not supposed to be taking itself seriously, she kind of almost trips while walking inside the room. And Arnold's in there, and he's got the voice recording on in the French accent that was recorded for him. And oh, at the last minute, she takes her ring off as she just remembered. Puts it on her other hand. And that's a big ass suite too. And he's like, it's like, and even on his salary, he couldn't afford it, but he still got it. But who knows? Maybe he used sector resources for that one too. Using the classic recorder. Oh, she actually downed the entire champagne. And yes, I will admit this is probably the best scene in the film. When Jamie Lee starts dancing, it's like when she lets go, it's like yeah, it's like it's the best scene in the film. I ain't gonna lie. Don't get me wrong, I like the action, but this is the best scene in the film. And she's still mentally she's like in housewife mode, right? So um it like as this particular scene progresses, she she changes into like, you know, into like what I call classic Jamie Lee Curtis mode. And in Jamie Lee Curtis fashion, she's in great shape. She always was. And like all her roles, especially during her younger days, she was always known to have like that killer body. So so it's like dance for me. Dance sexy. Let your hands, your skin do all the work and blah blah blah. And then she basically starts to let go as she starts to gain some momentum. And I'm sure a lot of guys that saw this movie were like, "Yep, best scene in the film." And then Arnold's character is like it's like he's never seen this side of his wife before, which or at least he hasn't seen this side of his wife for a long time because he's looking and he's like, "Holy crap, this is a whole other side to her." He's like, "Oh my gosh." Like that's my wife. And he's like, "Shit." So, too bad we couldn't see it from Arnold's point of view when she when she did that move. And then in a funny part right here, she accidentally falls over, but she recovers really quickly. And he's like, she kind of stopped all of a sudden, and she's like, what's wrong? So because she is supposed to quote unquote complete a mission in this film, so And then he just drops the recording because he's like, oh my gosh. And now he's like, lie on the bed and close your eyes. And she's like, I thought you only like to watch. And she's like terrified at this point because she thinks she's going to have to give it up. He rewinds it, stops it, plays again. No, lie on the bed and close your eyes. And she just follows instruction. So, and this is where Harry wants to make his move to reveal that, hey, this is me. So, so and it doesn't quite work out the way he wants to, but if you think about it, if you're a husband and this is what you want to do in order to surprise your wife, it's like this would be a definite way to surprise her. And her eyes are still closed, and he kisses her, but she has no idea it's him. And he hesitates for a second because he's like, I'm gonna blow this whole thing, but he doesn't care. And she takes the phone and whack, hits him across the face and behind the head. And he goes down. Again, she still doesn't know it's Harry. Goes to walk away, kicks him in the ribs twice, and she almost forgets to complete her mission. She's like, oh, wait a minute, I gotta plant the bug. And then he's like, Helen, wait, wait, wait. And she's like, Harry? Yes, it's Harry. I can explain. She's like shocked at this point, and then bam, real terrorists, real bad guys come in the room with armed with guns and everything because they found him. And then he's like, come on, guys, let the hooker go. She has nothing to do with this. And she's like, Harry, let me handle this. She thinks she was really on a mission or whatnot and stuff like that. So a lot of funny stuff here. And then at this point, she's like, even if I told you, you wouldn't believe me why I'm here. So they're taken away to an airport where there's a private plane. And who's going to be joining them? Oh my gosh, who could have a pair of legs like that? Oh, it's Tia Carrera. And it's revealed that she is obviously, well, now Harry knows that she's part of the bad guys group. And he basically says, I wish I could say it was nice to see you again. Nice to see you again, Juno. And she's like, you know her? Who's your little friend? Like, I'm Helen. I'm Harry's wife. Oh, so it's Tasker, not Rehnquist. And then she's automatically assuming that he's been cheating on her. And then he's like, she's just some hooker I met at the bar. What's the matter with you, Helen? What's the matter with you, Harry? We're married and we have a daughter. And again, this is just hilarious. Like, what is she on? Just okay, where did I get this? Where did I get this? So she thinks that he's cheating on her with her, and he's trying to protect her, and it's not working. And she's given something to knock her out. And now he is too. So very interesting how fast that stuff works. Probably an anesthetic or something. and they are flown over to the headquarters of where the bad guys are. So this is where the action of the film starts to ramp up, and then of course you see Aziz, and he's putting everything together, and they've got a nuke, and they're going to put it off, and they're going to set it off on this remote island as a demonstration, right? So kind of show off. And now they've got Harry, and they also have his wife. Would have been easier for Harry if they didn't have the wife, but again, there's some very interesting character development that happens here, especially with Helen, as well as with Harry. Well, with Helen more than anything else. And she's like quickly learning about her husband. And then there's a scene that's coming where he's going to be given a truth serum because they're going to try to extract information from him. And his wife actually ends up asking him a few questions. It's like, how long have you been a spy, Harry? And he's like, 17 years. So, have you ever killed anyone? He's like, yeah, but they were all bad. Things like that. So, and this is the scene where Helen officially learns that Harry's a spy, and she's not happy about it because he's been lying to her for so many years. So it's like, hey, you could at least be more understanding and understand why I had to lie. But of course, being the traditional housewife, it's like, well, you can always tell me anything, sort of thing. But it's like, can't tell you everything. So, and there's the ice cream cone, the oversized ice cream cone. And then he brings Harry over, and he's like, you know what this is? And then Harry looks, and he's like, I know what this is. And he's like, he's like, humor me, tell me what it is. And he's like, that's an espresso machine. No, no, no. The snow cone maker. That's what it is. The water heater. And now he grabs Helen, and he's basically like, do you know, so that this man can verify to the world? I brought this man here so he can verify to the world that now we're a nuclear power. And he's like, and she's like, he's just a salesman. He's still trying to protect his identity, so to speak, right? So, and at this point, this is where he basically tells her you're wrong about him. So now he threatens to kill her, basically. And now Arnold has no choice but to say what it really is. He's like, that's a Soviet Merv 6. And he literally says everything about what the nuke is. And she's just absolutely like astonished that he would know that. And then he basically tells him in Arabic, he's like, release her and I'll cooperate. And at this point, she's just looking at him like, I don't even know you. And then he's like, what can I say? I'm a spy. And then she just punches him in the head and knocks him down on the ground. She's like, you lying son of a bitch. And then like, sorry, honey. You don't get to call me honey again. And then Juno Skinner is just laughing her ass off after she punches him in the face. And then they take him away, and so at this point right now, pretty soon you're going to get that truth serum scene that I was telling you about. And in a slight comedy, this guy is basically being recorded to show off a presentation to everybody who's trying to send the message to, and the camera's on low battery, and the guy doesn't want to tell him because he doesn't want to piss him off, but ends up pissing him off anyway. So it's like, it is what it is. So gonna have to record more than once. Battery. Walks up to him. He's like, get another one then. And then they do a little bit of a search. And she's had a transmitter on her the whole time, unknowingly, thanks to Gibbs' crew. So they've been tracked, so that's good. And they destroyed it, so they lost the signal now. So now this is where they need to know everything about Arnold and his crew and all that kind of stuff. So they give him a truth serum and they try to get all the information from him that they can. Simple as that. So so basically talking to Juno Skinner at this point, like, why are you helping all these psychos? And he's like, well, they're paying me a lot of money. Go figure. He just looks at her and he's like, you're damaged goods, lady. And he's just been given truth serum, so even though it hasn't fully taken effect yet, it's like, and then she kisses him right in front of him and he wants absolutely nothing to do with it. Thanks, Harry. It wasn't bad while it lasted. I wonder if there was a scene that they cut out of this film to where they actually did do something. I'm not sure. And he's like, there was nothing, I swear. Well, he was just given a truth serum, so he probably is telling the truth. So right now she knows that what they gave him is gonna make him tell tell the truth. And he's like, "Is it working? Ask me a question. It's something that I would lie about." And she's like, "Are we gonna die?" And he's like, "Yep." Like, "Yep, I say it's working." They're either gonna torture us or they're gonna blah blah blah. How long have you been a spy, Harry? 17 years. It's a long time. You gotta be a good liar for that long for her not to find out. Probably as long as they've been married or before they got married. And then she's like, "Have you ever killed anyone?" And he's like, yeah, but they were all bad." So she's like, just looking at him in a completely different light because for 17 years she's known him to be a computer representative, right? A sales rep for a computer company. And now she's like, this guy is definitely not who I thought he was. And then the bad guys find out that that they have a daughter. So And then the interrogator's like, is there anything you want to tell me before we start? And he's like, yeah, I'm going to take you out pretty soon. And he's like, oh, how you plan on doing that? He's like, first I'm going to use you as a human shield. And then I'm going to take out the guard over there with the tools on the table. And then I'm taking you out. What makes you think you can do all that? And he's like, you know my handcuffs? He's like, yeah, I've picked them. And he's loose. So it's like, and he does exactly what he says. And just like that, taking out a few people. And the action start again, the action in this film really starts to pick up now. And then his wife literally saw him take out 3 guys like that. So it's like, yep, there's your proof, lady. It's not just word anymore. Like, there's your proof. Your husband is a very, very well trained individual. So their relationship at this point is actually growing and progressing now. So now at this point, these guys just start firing up at the sky, wasting a bunch of ammo. But even though they're firing, they can't hear all the firepower that's going on since Harry's been spotted. And of course, he's going to take a few of these guys out, as always. It's a really cool move where you use the gun to like snap that guy's neck. And another little trick of how he got that weapon to come back up and then take them out. And then this is quick too. Just drops the gun and boom, shoots the guy even though he held her from behind. And then honey, next time duck. And then he kisses her and she's just like befuddled. And then he picks up that guy's gun and it was an Uzi from the looks of it. Either an M920, either an M911 or an Uzi. And then he activates the nuke. And Arnold is basically telling Helen like basically what he's saying because he can understand Arabic. He can I'm sure he knows even more languages than that. I also think that Arnold understands like at least I think Arnold can speak like 4 languages actually in real life. I'm pretty sure. Like fluently. Obviously German, English, and like 2 more. Like 1 or 2 more. I think I read that somewhere. I'm not sure. And I wouldn't be surprised. And go figure, he gives her an Uzi. Which is kind of surprising. Obviously, it's movie humor right there because If that was a real life thing, he would have given her the pistol because the Uzi would have been way too powerful for her to handle. Lots of neck snapping in this movie. Again, another neck snap and a little bit of stealth, which for Arnold, you're not really used to seeing too much stealth from Arnold, you know? But it's good to see it whenever you do see it, which is pretty cool. And a little bit of grenade action. Takes out the lights first, and then he takes out the bad guys. Like, yep, there's a method to the madness, so to speak. And then, of course, you got a little bit more pistol action right here. And Arnold is in trouble because he got blindsided by a really strong guy from behind. And then they're all coming in to take care of him. And then Arnold's like, shoot. And his wife attempts to shoot the gun. And of course, it goes way up and she drops it. But the gun still goes off, so she has to duck, and so does everybody else. Really funny. Complete movie fiction humor over here. Unrealistic, but still funny. And Arnold's looking all around, and it's like nothing but dead bodies. And then he's like, you did all that? And she's just like, uh-huh, thumbs up, so to speak. And of course, Arnold doing what he does, handling two Uzis at once. And he's actually quite strong. And to this day, he's still quite strong. And if even if you look at Arnold's hands to this day, it's like those haven't changed at all. So it's like, certain things don't ever go away. So, and I think when he did that movie when he was older, what was it, The Last Stand or something like that, like to where he was using that big freaking um that big handgun or whatnot that recoils like a motherfucker. Like apparently, like it was legit when he was using it, like in one of the scenes to fire around, and there was no freaking recoil when he gripped that thing. And with everybody else, it was like that thing could, make you, make you hit yourself in the nose. But when Arnold used it, there was no freaking recoil. It's just, yeah, a little bit more proof that he's still really, really strong. So back in Arnold's bodybuilding days, his best friend, who's no longer with us, sadly, Franco Columbu, was actually the strongest man in the world. And I think I read somewhere online, to where they all put their personal records or PRs in terms of what their highest bench and squat and deadlift and everything was. And Franco was stronger than Arnold, but Arnold wasn't too far behind. So, back in his prime, Arnold was one of the strongest men in the world back in the day in the 1970s when he was literally in his prime in bodybuilding. So, and it's pretty, whenever you see Arnold wield, like there are some scenes to where, the gun is actually, um, in terms of how it recoils and everything. Obviously, when you're shooting it, I mean, there's never supposed to be real rounds on the movie set or whatnot, but I'm very, very sure that like he could handle high recoil weapons with like no recoil whatsoever. And then here we go. We got Tia Carrera took a hit from, Juno Skinner took a hit from Helen after she said, "My condolences to the widow," and then smacks her with the ring, her ring hand, and causing her face to bleed a little bit. And she went to go kill her, and then Aziz, the main bad guy, basically saved her life. He's like, "No, we may need the hostage." So, but Harry didn't die. He set everything on fire and then jumped in the water and was able to escape. But Helen thinks he's gone, and that's obviously not the case. And then we got the bridge over here. Nice overview of everything. And then the good guys in their helicopters end up showing up, even though they're a little late, but at least Arnold has a ride now. Nice little sunset in the back. He's like, "Yeah, I thought this looked like your work." Definitely classic Arnold. One of the cooler scenes in the film is when they take out the bridge. I mean, granted, there's a lot of cool scenes in this film, but one of them is when they take out the bridge, and then at this point, you know, and at this point they're preparing for the big boom. And then we got some Marine Corps Harriers that are in the air, so we got in touch with those guys and they can bring them over. And then Jamie Lee Curtis just basically wants to. Helen Tasker just wants to beat the hell out of Juno Skinner at this point. Can't go wrong with the fighter pilot scenes. You can't ever go wrong with that. Of course, one of the trucks gets taken out, which is cool. And go figure, the bad guys have a rocket launcher. Which one of them uses it wrongly and it fires backwards. All right, time for them to use their Mavericks in order to take off those, you know. He's like, those missiles won't fire off those nukes, will they? He's like, that's negative, but he didn't know, so but he told him negative anyway. taking out the bridge. And then you see the truck go flying way in the air. And then in a scene to where the truck behind is just like hitting the brake and then just tilting over the edge. And then they start laughing because they're like, haha, we're gonna be all right. And then there's a pelican that gets on top of the truck that basically tilts it even more, and then and then they fall over and then boom. And there they go. Boom. And yay, we get a little bit of a chick fight here. Helen saw an opportunity to take to to basically kind of ambush her, and she fired the gun and she hit the driver, and now the car is going all over the place. And she's firing even more rounds, but again, there's there's the chick fight. Gets to unarm her, and then now we've got a chick fight. She relies on her gun, and Helen just, does what Helen does. Surprised I haven't seen any hair pulling yet, to be honest. Choking, though. And Tia Carrere looks absolutely psychotic. And now she tries to get the gun from on top of the limo. But somehow they're still moving forward, despite the fact that car's going berserk because the driver is boomed. And then Harry falling behind with the helicopter is going to try to rescue his wife. And then Arnold's going to deliver one of his major lines in the film. The bridge is out. And then she can't hear him, and then she's like, the bridge is out. And she's like, what? Look, the bridge is out, Harry. The bridge is out. I like the way he says that. She's like, I can't hear you. And he's like pointing. He's like, look. And she's like, oh my gosh, the bridge is out. And of course, he's going to try to help her out by giving her a hand from that angle. Obviously, a stuntman's doing this, but with some clever close-ups, they can make it look like Arnold's doing it. And I love how James Cameron always wants to make things look as real as possible, especially now, like during those days. And he's struggling to get her to hold the hand, and she's like, oh gosh. And Juno basically regains consciousness, and she sees what's about to happen. She's like, oh shit. She finally is able to grab Harry's hand, and yep, Juno basically goes down with the limo. But she could have survived that, honestly. I didn't see an explosion of the limo. And Jamie Lee Curtis is like, screaming. Her facial expressions just say it all. It's hilarious. Just hanging from Arnold's grip and via helicopter. And it's so funny. The plane lands on the street, and then there's a sign that says "No parking, only on the shoulder." James Cameron humor. So at this point, you know, the character development has really gone through a whole other step now. And basically, Harry and his wife have really strengthened their marriage through and their relationship through all of this, because now she truly knows who he is, and he's fully able to be himself around her. And it's the man she's familiar with, but at the same time it's almost like a new man in a sense. So, and he also notices that, hey, this is the wrong finger that she's got a ring on, and she just kind of smiles at him. So, and then they have a romantic little kiss as the nuke goes off in the background. And he's got to go to work. And then she's like, yep, go to work. But it's not over yet, because remember, they noticed about the daughter? Well, Helen has absolutely no idea. Harry will find out, but Helen has absolutely no idea. But they have a hostage, and it's Dana, Harry's daughter. So I guess he grabbed her in the middle of the night or something, but he can't tell Helen. So he ends up taking one of the Harriers. And Helen's just looking on like, can you fly that too? Like, if I break it, they could take it out of my pay. And he does a untraditional takeoff, but he manages to take off regardless. And in that one cut, it actually looks like Arnold is actually in there and is actually in control and going up, but maybe they had a different model with something on the bottom of it, like hydraulics, that caused it to go up and down, which is why you can't see the entirety of the plane. But who knows? Maybe there were a few seconds to where Arnold did take it a couple feet off the ground. I don't know. And if he didn't, they sure as hell made it look real like it did, because some of those cuts actually look like he actually did, and that it actually looked like him and it wasn't a stunt guy. So, and there he goes. Took off untraditionally, but still was able to make it. So, and then of course they're at the top of a building, watching himself on TV with one of the broadcasts he's done earlier. And of course they got Dana. And they got reporters coming up in order to get stories and stuff like that. And it's like, and one of the reporters just happens to be one of Harry's men. And Dana bravely notices that the nuke is being operated by a key that he put in and just left. And then, of course, he goes back on the air again. And, Dana, just being the smart kid, just decides to take the key. He's like, one turn of that key, and then bam, it's all over. And he's like, what key? He's like, that key. And he's like, who's taking the key? And boom, boom, boom. Harry's guy just had a gun hidden in the camera and takes out three guys very quickly. And even he says, whoa. I guess all that training's paid off, buddy. Even though you specialize in computers, your training's paid off. Dana tries to make a run for it, and she's got his key. And without it, he can't operate the nuke. So Dana being brave and running away and maybe dodging a few bullets here and there. And Arnold's on the way. A nice little view over the city. Talk about scary. Let's hope this is all green screen. Dana being super brave. And he's trying to convince her that he's not lying to her. He's like, you won't get hurt if you give me the key. And she's like, no way. Then you got the classic scene where guy's using his binoculars, and then bam, Arnold and his plane come in plain view, and then we got more bang bang. But what's funny is he tries to he tries to put it in focus, and then bam, with some machine guns on the plane, takes out all the bad guys on that floor. And it's like he already knows that Dana's on the roof, so it's like it's all for the sake of the movie. Hey, and there's Arnold inside the plane and everything. They made it look really good. And then Dana looks down and she sees Dad's piloting the plane. She's like, Dad? So now mother and daughter pretty much know that their dad is not exactly what he seems. Got a little bit of an action scene where Arnold takes out a few more things with Well, actually, just fends off an attacker with his machine guns while he tries to rescue his daughter. Dana gets down, and oh, the terrorist or the bad guy just jumps right off on the plane from the platform. And Dana's slipping from the nose of the plane while this thing moves. It's just must be scary as hell. And on top of that, you got the bad guy trying to take Arnold out. Pretty intense scene. And then a funny scene where you see a guy in a damn office is dancing. Damn. Finally gets a hold of his gun. Take the plane down. And then he signals to his daughter that he's going to move the plane to the right or the left, causing the guy to go over. But wait, he gets trapped on one of the missiles. Kind of funny. One of Arnold's lines, "You're fired," fires a missile with the guy hanging right on the missile, and then it just hits the helicopter with all those bad guys on there. 2 for 1. You're fired. I like how I did that. You're fired. Incredible. And the plane finally lands. And then the relationship with his daughter is rekindled. That's the proper word. Rekindle. Is that? I don't know. Re-strengthened. I think rekindled is when you're talking about a couple. So I guess it's disgusting. But yep. Now the daughter knows who dad is and what he does just through that alone. And he's her hero now. When before he was barely a part of her life. And yeah, the unidentified pilot was escorted out of there. And yep, simple as that. And 1 year later, you see that the family at the dinner table is not the same family that was at the dinner table like a little over a year previously. Things have changed. The relationship has gone up to a whole other level. And Dana is not even a tomboy anymore. Like, just by the way she's dressed, she's not even a tomboy that much anymore. Helen's hair has grown a little bit. And we got Boris and Doris on the phone here. So it's like she has become an agent herself at this point. So and now you see them that they're on a mission together, like an official mission. And it kind of goes full circle from the very beginning of the film, where everybody was, and then Harry's wearing a white suit this time, a white top with a black bottom, and uh, Helen's got her hair really nice and stylish and everything, and she's basically an agent now, and she's got some of his swag and everything else, and they're taking on a mission similar to what was in the first mission. So, um, so Helen sees somebody who she'd like to say hello to, and guess who it is? It's Simon doing what he does. Still pretending to be an undercover agent. Same old story, same shit. So there's Harry, and then oh, it's Helen now too. And then Arnold's like, I'm gonna do him right here. He's like, go for it. Giving him a taste of his own medicine, so to speak, and he just they had to mess with him a little bit. And the tango, which this time is with his wife, and it means something in comparison to the dance that was with Juno. That was just for a mission, but they kind of take a break from their mission to kind of have a dance together, which is kind of cool. And then you've got Gib on the mic that's basically saying, okay guys, let's go, let's get too distracted. So and it's really a good way to end the film. You know, it was a way to start the film to where they had the dance, where there was a dance, but this time that same dance has a lot more meaning to it. And you got Gib telling them, come on guys. So, and and this time I think you actually see the entire dance as opposed to getting cuts in and out. You see the completion. You see Arnold doing all the steps. You see Jamie Lee Curtis doing all the steps as the camera pans back, and then you actually start to see the credits as the dance uh as the dance concludes. But it's not over yet, so we don't fade to black just yet until the dance completely finishes. So, and I like how the camera pan back and you see an overview of the entire dance floor, and Helen and Harry are at the center of it, which is cool. So it was kind of a sweet way to end the film. And we fade to black. But just before we go, though, you see Gib, and he's like, you know what? I'm sick of being in the van. You guys are going to be in the van next time. I've been in the van for 15 years, Harry. And then we officially go to the credits. So True Lies was really a fun film, and there were just some scenes to where you just kind of have to take them in, and it's kind of hard to talk and commentate over a few scenes, and but nonetheless, it was good. I mean, just like in other movies, some scenes you just got to watch, and it's hard to kind of talk and commentate as you're taking everything in. But True Lies was a really fun film, and you know, James Cameron, you know, made a really really fun action film with Arnold and everything, and added in just the right amount of comedy, and then you had a whole bunch of metaphors and satire or whatnot, if those are the proper terms. But True Lies was a truly fun film, and I'm glad I got to see it when I did as a kid, and now as an adult looking at it this way, it's like you get to see the little things that you missed as a kid, those little messages and signals that only adults would know about, right? Because at 10 years old, what the hell do you know, right? But then when you see it later when you're an adult, and you just kind of, there's a lot of tongue in cheek, and there's a lot of like nods to, you know, what's really going on and such, and you can't help but appreciate it, and it keeps the film fresh, so to speak, if you see it when you're a kid and then when you see it as an adult. So it's like, yeah, this is why a lot of people would actually like this film, and a lot of people did. So, and it was James Cameron as always just did a really great job, and the cast was great, the supporting cast was great, and they were obviously handpicked properly, and everything just worked out really well for this film. So you know, if you like to watch a 90s action flick that doesn't take itself too seriously, this is one of those films that does that. So True Lies, you really can't go wrong with. So there's a handful of films that do this really well, and it's really astonishing that, um, you know, that James Cameron did this after everything else that he was known for, and it wasn't, you know, it wasn't like science fiction, action, and stuff like that, and it had a hint of comedy to it. So he wanted to do it, and he did it. So, um, yeah, and to my knowledge, the movie was a success. So, and a lot of people seem to like it. I don't think I've ever heard of anybody not liking this film. So, as the credits here start to finish up as we get closer to the end, this was a lot of fun commentating and watching after all this time, and really looking to do on the next one. So, hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys enjoyed the film and the commentary for what it was. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. See ya.